Good evening. Hundreds of protesters hit the streets today to complain about Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying's policy address. They're unhappy about his plans because they say he won't solve any livelihood issues. Bo Leung reports.
While Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying has pledged to solve Hong Kong's housing, poverty and environmental problems, many aren't convinced it's enough and took to the streets today to complain about it. They said Leung's policy address measures aren't enough to improve people's livelihoods and questioned his integrity, saying they have lost trust in him as chief executive. That's after explosive allegations were made about him lying about his already controversial illegal structures. The Civil Human Rights Front, Pan-Democrats and several non-government organisations marched from Causeway Bay to government offices in Tamar to show their disappointment with the embattled leader.
In the recent policy address, we can see no measure in how to help the poor people, how to resolve the situation of the poverty problem, and also for our teenagers, how can we buy a flat for us? I think we cannot afford for living, we cannot make our ends meet. So I think for policy address should more focus on the poverty problem and the teenage problem.
Some accused Leung of failing to address the city's deep-rooted problems and didn't follow up on his election campaign promises.
It's totally different from when he's having the elections.
Protesters had various demands, including legislation on standard working hours, universal suffrage, alleviating poverty and tackling discrimination against people of different sexual orientation. Others pointed out the lack of a timetable to resolve livelihood issues. Demonstrators said although Leung has highlighted housing as a top priority and pledged to build 100,000 additional units starting from 2018, some feel that he is simply passing on responsibility to the next government to sort out. Police said the turnout for the rally was around 1,100, while organisers put the number at 2,000. Bo Leung, ATV News.
The Chief Secretary says she expects to face a lot of criticism during Wednesday's LegCo meeting on the policy address, but insists it'll motivate her to try harder. Carrie Lam also doesn't think there's any hostility between the Chief Executive and Pan-Democrat lawmakers. Emily Sue explains.
Another one of Leung Chun-ying's top officials came to his defense today. Speaking on a radio program this morning, Chief Secretary Carrie Lam insisted there's no hostility between the Leung and Pan-Democratic camps. She says the chief executive often tells her he's just had breakfast with Pan-Democrat lawmakers and that he listened to their opinions, so she doesn't think he sees them as the enemy. This comes after Liu Mun-hong, a CPPCC member and staunch Leung supporter during the chief executive election, accused him of labeling the Pan-Democrats the enemy during a dinner. Liu also accused Leung of lying about the illegal structures at his peak home, saying that he invented the 3 professionals he said he asked to inspect his house for unauthorized extensions. Starting Wednesday, the Legislative Council will start a 3-day panel meeting to discuss Leung's maiden policy address. Lam says she's prepared to face a wave of criticism in the chamber. She noted that in a democratic society like Hong Kong, it's inevitable for people to have different opinions, and it can pave a rough road ahead for any policy making. She insisted she will stay humble in the face of any criticism, and in fact, it will motivate her to do better. She added that the chief executive has been rolling out policies whenever the time is right, so she disagrees with suggestions that Leung saved his populist policies for his annual speech. That's the reason, she said, why there weren't too many groundbreaking policies included in the address. Turning to another pressing issue, Lam announced today that an official poverty line will be set no later than October this year. She's also expecting Leung to include concrete measures to tackle poverty in his next policy address, which could be in October or January. But at the same time, she admitted the schedule may be too tight to actually come up with any new measures by October. Based on the latest figures released by one NGO, the Council of Social Services, 20% of the population lives in poverty. This means 1.2 million people are living under that group's poverty line, which is drawn at half of the median household income. Emily Sue, ATV News.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying refused again today to comment on former supporter Liu Mun-hong's explosive allegations about him and his illegal structures. At an event this afternoon, he ignored reporters when asked about the scandal.
It's been more than 3 days since Liu Mun-hong accused the chief executive of making up stories about illegal structures at his home. Since then, Leung Chun-ying has remained tight-lipped about the controversy. When he turned up at a public event today, he again refused to comment on Liu's accusations. The chief executive repeatedly ignored reporters who shouted questions at him. He blanked the media and literally walked away. Leung denied all the allegations the day after Liu made them, saying they are nothing new and nothing true. Yesterday, Liu fought back by inviting Leung to take a lie detector test together with him. Liu said if he fails, he will jump off the top of the IFC2 tower. And if Leung fails, Liu wants him to apologize. Emily Sue, ATV News.
Well, earlier on, Leung Chun-ying was more than happy to talk about the housing targets set out in his policy address. The chief executive also said letting mainlanders come to Hong Kong on individual visas is the biggest source of tourism income and was his idea. Bo Leung has more.
Solving Hong Kong's housing crisis is a top priority for Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying. In his maiden policy address, Leung pledged to build 75,000 new public housing units over his current 5-year term. He also set a target of at least 100,000 additional public housing units to be built over a 5-year period starting from 2018. Speaking on RTHK's letter to Hong Kong, Leung is confident that ongoing efforts will help meet his ambitious targets.
We have successfully increased the plot ratio of 4 residential sites. One of these sites will provide home ownership scheme units. In March, another site will be presented to the Town Planning Board for rezoning to public rental housing. If approved by the board, those will add to the present target of 75,000 units in the next 5 years.
Leung also laid out plans to clean up the city's air by reducing emissions from ships and take more than 80,000 commercial diesel vehicles off the roads.
The single largest financial commitment in my policy address concerns the environment. I've set aside $10 billion as subsidies to phase out heavily polluting diesel commercial vehicles, which is the most effective way to reduce roadside pollution.
The chief executive said he was the one who came up with the idea to allow mainland tourists to come here on individual visas instead of having to join a tour group. Leung says this has been beneficial to Hong Kong.
More than a few commentators were skeptical. Today, the mainland is the biggest market for our professionals and the biggest source of tourism income. The skeptics were proven wrong. These two sectors of our economy, among others, have seized on the opportunities by working with the government.
Leung also said economic growth and development will help address housing, poverty, the ageing population and environmental issues and pledged more support for Hong Kong businesses. Bo Leung, ATV News.
The health chief says he is aware that there will be a shortage of baby milk powder in certain districts, despite steps taken to ensure adequate supplies. Ko Wing-man revealed that the government may deal with a price gap of milk powder between Hong Kong and the mainland in the long term to tackle the problem. Edna Zeh reports.
Despite government assurances that there will not be a baby milk powder shortage over the Lunar New Year, some shoppers are still complaining that they can't get their hands on any. This grandmother said she's been to more than 5 shops but had no luck. While this shop owner in Mong Kok said his stock has been scooped up by mainlanders over the past few days and he's waiting for supplies. Food and Health Secretary Ko Wing-man once again reassured local parents today that there will be enough milk powder to go around, especially over the holiday. He admitted that some shops in certain districts have run out, but said he's confident milk powder suppliers will deliver more to help maintain their supplies. Ko said he and his staff have been monitoring the situation by visiting pharmacists and shops to check supplies. He reiterated that the government has not ruled out the possibility of taking drastic measures to tackle the shortage, but stressed that sometimes there may be adverse effect on such stringent action. Ko also said he is concerned about the difference between local and mainland milk powder prices, and the government needs to find a long-term solution. Parallel goods traders and shoppers from the mainland have been snapping up the essential item for infants in bulk. There have also been reports of unscrupulous retailers hoarding milk powder or raising prices. All this has led to shops across Hong Kong run